Assalamualaikum dear students. Let's continue our topic, the bites and pancakes. It's our fourth lecture at this essay. We are at the middle of the page, number 62, last para I think it is. When Frank Bushman's moral rearmament army, some 200 strong, visited Madras sometimes in 1952. They could not have found a warmer host in India than the Jimny Stadium. Frank Bushman's more armament army was given the name of that troop. Some 200 strong crew visited visited Madras sometime in 1952, around that. They could not have found a warmer host in India, means they were warmly welcomed by Jimny Studios. Someone called the group an international circus. Someone called this group as if it is an international circus. They weren't very good on the trapeze, and their acquaintance with animals was only at the dinner table. Means in that case they were not international circus. That was that they, because they were not good on the trapeze, means a gymnastic apparatus. They were not good at that. If they tried to do something, some acrobatics, but they couldn't. And their acquaintance, as far as their familiarity with the animal, was not was only at the dinner table. Means they were not acquainted with the animals as well. But and they presented two plays in a most professional manner. Means they belonged to the they were professional players, and they belonged to some theater there. So they present two plays there. One was Jotham Valley, and the other Forgotten Factor. Ran several shows in Madras and along with other citizens of the city. The Jimny family of 600 saw the plays over and over again. Means this was these plays were a big hit. So most of the people in Madras, they saw it, and the big family of the Jimny Studio also watched these plays again and again. That the message of the plays were usually planned and simple homilies. Homilies means religious discourses, were, and that was the only message through these plays. And but the sets and costumes were first rate, of high quality, good quality. Madras and Tamil drama community were terribly impressed, very impressed. Uh, for same for some years, almost all Tamil plays had a scene of sunrise and sunset in the manner of Jotham Valley, as they have with their stage, as they have watched in that Jotham Valley, the scene of sunrise and sunset, and the people here in Madras, they followed the suit. They did the same way they showed the sunrise and sunset at their stage, with a white background curtain and a tune played on the flute. Means they would show in the background a white curtain, and also they played a tune on the flute. It was some flute, it's a musical instrument. It was some years later that I learned that MRA was a kind of a counter movement to international communism, and the big boss of Madras, like Mr. Watson, simply played into their hands. It was some years later that I learned, our author learned, that MRA was a kind of a counter. Maybe he's talking about this group of people. They were counter movement against the international communism, because communism was separating widely at that time. So to counter that, this was MRA was a counter movement to that international communism. And big boss of Madras like Mr. Vasan was one such boss. He simply played into their hands, means he was the part of this game. I am not sure, however, that this was indeed the case, but I was not very much sure as if this was there was any such reality. For the unchangeable aspects of these big boss and their enterprises remained the same because their enterprises are there for unchangeable aspects. Whatever the aspects they had, they remained the same all the time, and remain the same. MRA or no MRA means this or not this. International communism or no international communism. This was the basic aspects of this boss. The stop of Jimny Studio had a nice time hosting 200 people of all hues and colors and sizes of at least 20 nationalities. Means they hosted them, they provided them boarding, lodging, or whatever it was, the facilities at Gymnast Studio, and host them. So it was only the Gymnast Studio and that could do it. It was such a change from the usual collection of crowd players waiting to be slapped with thick layers of makeup by the office boy in the makeup department. As already we know, it was the duty of office boy to provide the makeup to the crowd players. So this time it was such a change from that usual collection. Usually the crowd players were done that. We had the another group of from 20 different nations who have collected here. So it was something new. A few months later, the telephone lines of the big boss of Madras, uh, uh, big boss of Madras buzzed, and once again we at Gymnast Studios cleared a whole shooting stage to welcome another visitor. Means again we got some message from somewhere that the telephones buzzed of the big boss of Madras. So we got the information that some another visitors are just arriving, and we have to clear a whole shooting stage for them to welcome them. All they said was that he was a poet this time, but it was said that he was a poet from England. The only poets from England the simple gymnast staff knew or heard of were Wordsworth and Tennyson. So far, the gymnast staff only knew anything about the English poets. They were the Wordsworth or Tennyson, or the more literate ones knew of Keats, Shelley, and Byron. Maybe some people who knew who are interested in English literature might have known the names of Keats, Shelley, and Byron, and no one or two might have faintly come to know of someone by the name of Eliot. Maybe one or two might have heard the name of Eliot, who was the poet visiting the German studio. Now, who was coming to Gymnast studio? Was among these people or somebody else? He's not a poet, he is an editor, but he's not a poet, he's an editor, it is said. And that's why the boss is giving him a big reception. Vasan was also the editor of the popular Tamil weekly Ananda Vikatan. Vasan, that big boss, he was himself an editor of the Tamil weekly, so that's why he's giving him a big reception. He wasn't the editor of any of the known names of British publications in Madras. He wasn't the editor of any known names. British publications in Madras, there were many British publications, but he was not one of the known names of those weeklies. That is those known at the Gymnast Studios. People did not know him at Gymnast Studios. Since the top man of the Hindu, the one of the publications from Madras were taking the initiative. The surmise was that the poet was the editor of a daily, but not from the Manchester Guardian or the London Times. Since the top men of the Hindu, means those who are related to the Hindu, were taking this initiative, the surmise the guess was that the poet was the editor of a daily, might be the editor of a daily, but not from the Manchester Guardian or the London Times, but not these two famous, belonged to these two famous publications like Manchester Guardian or London Times. That was all that even the most well informed among us knew, because the people who are well versed or having the good knowledge of us knew this thing. At last, around 4 in the afternoon, the poet or the editor, whatever we call him, whether he was a poet or an editor, he arrived. He was a tall man, very English, very serious, and of course, very unknown to all of us. None of us knew anything about him. Battling with half a dozen pedestal fans on the shooting stage. So pedestal fans were they were working on the stage. The boss read out a long speech. He read out in his honor. It was obvious that he too knew precious little about the poet or the editor, because he knew something about the precious things about the poet or the editor. The speech was all in the most general terms, but here and there it was peppered with words like freedom and democracy. Means it was sprinkled with the paper, or with the words like freedom and democracy in these words. Otherwise, it was as generally general terms. Then the poet spoke. Then the poet spoke. Then the poet spoke. He could not have addressed a more dazed and silent audience. Now it was the turn of this guest to speak. Here, the poet to speak, and but he could not have addressed such a crowd or audience that was silent and dazed, means unable to think or react, means mute and silent audience was that. So he was not maybe he could not have addressed a more dazed or silent audience like this. No one knew what he was talking about, and his accent defeated any attempt to understand, because his accent was such that nobody could understand what he said, what he was saying. The whole thing lasted about an hour. Means the whole affair was over that separated over an hour. Then the poet left, and we all dispersed, sectored in utter bafflement. Means we were baffled. Bafflement means surprised or puzzled. What are we doing? That what is an English poet doing in a film studio which makes Tamil films for the simplest sort of people? This studio has been made for the simplest sort of the people. What the Englishman is doing here? How he can help us? People whose lives least afford them the possibility of cultivating a taste for English poetry. Means these the people, common people, they least afforded the possibility of cultivating any taste for English poetry or English. The poet looked pretty baffled too. He was also puzzled. He was also perplexed. For he too must have felt the sheer incongruity, because completely incompatibility. Incongruity means incompatibility of his talk about the thrills and travails. Travails means engaged in painful or laborious efforts, whatever laborious efforts he made, and of an English poet, and so that was incompatible. His visit remained an unexplained mystery. So this was all as an unexplained mystery. It was a mystery which could not be explained. Why he visited, what was the fun, what was the outcome, how did it benefit to gymnasium or the common masses or the people there or the members of the great prose writers of the world may not admit it. The next para, the great prose writers may not accept it, but my conviction, the author says, but I have a strong belief that grows stronger day by day, day after day, that prose writing is not and cannot be the true pursuit of a genius. The people who are genius, it cannot be the pursuit of these people to write prose. Why? It is for the patient, but it is only for those people who are patient, who shows the patience, or who are persistent, or persevering drudge means a persistent despite difficulties. Those people who are doing something, talking about something difficult, or starting something difficult, or persistently they are doing something difficult, that's a pursuing. Such people can write the prose with a heart so shrunken that nothing can break it. Means those who have, whose heart is shrunken, and nothing can break it, so such people can only write prose. Otherwise the genius people cannot do it. uh, Rejection slips don't mean a thing to him. Means if the writer, the essay writer, the prose writer is rejected, that doesn't mean anything to me. Means he is ready to go on and on persistently. He at once sets about making fresh copy of the long prose piece and sends it on to another editor, enclosing postage for the return of the manuscript. Means he just writes something. Manuscript in handwritten document is sent somewhere along with the postage is also enclosed in this, so that he can get the can get be returned this manuscript. It was for such people that the Hindu had published a tiny announcement in an insignificant corner of an unimportant page. So it was for such people, those people who are persevering drudges, or who are patient, who are persistent in such people, for such people that Hindu, that publication, daily publication maybe, had published a tiny announcement, small advertisement published in an insignificant corner, in a insignificant, unimportant place, somewhere of an unimportant page. Short story was like this. A short story contest organized by a British periodical by that name. The encounter that there was an periodical that was published from Britain, and a British periodical. The name was the Encounter, and that is just organizing a contest of short stories. Of course, the Encounter wasn't a known commodity among the Gemini literati. Means the people who belonged to the literature, or who belonged to the Gemini studios, they had not known the name of Encounter. The Encounter means that the name of the periodical. I want to get an idea of the periodical before I wanted to know something about the period. I spent a considerable sum in postage sending a manuscript, so I spent some money by sending the manuscript handwritten document to England. In those days, the British Council Library had an entrance with no long-winded signboards and notes to make you feel you were sneaking into a forbidden area. Means those days British Council Library had no entrance. There was no winded signboards were not there, the notes were not made, so that you were to make you feel, that is how you felt, that as if you are sneaking, means stealthily you are secretly going into the forbidden area. And there were copies of the Encounter lying about in various degrees of freshness. Means everywhere the copies of the Encounter, means that periodical were lying here and there, almost untouched by readers. Maybe the people had not read them. When I read the editor's name, I heard a bell ringing in my shrunken heart. Once I heard the name of the editor, and something sent the waves through my heart. It was the poet who had visited me. Why? Because it was the poet who had visited our studios there. I felt like I had found a long lost brother, and I sang as I sealed the envelope and wrote out the address. So I was very pleased because I found the person as if I have found the lost brother. That's why I sealed the envelope and wrote out his address on that envelope. I felt that he too would be singing the same song at the same time. He may be singing the same song. Long lost brothers of Indian film discover each other by singing the same song in the first reel and in the final reel of the film. Means as we hear the people, long lost brothers in the Indian cinema are singing the song in the first reel of the film, and finally, similar was the case. He's with us, we two people, means I and the actor of the encounter who had once visited Jimny Studio, and so once I got the knowledge about him, so I was very pleased as if I'm going to. I found a long lost brother. Who was the final reel of the Stephen Spender? Stephen, that was his name. Yes, Stephen Spender. You might have heard an English poet, essayist, who concentrated on themes of social injustice and class struggle. He was Stephen Spender. And years later, when I was out of Jiminy Studio, later years when I was out of Jimny Studios and I had much time but not much money, means once I had left this place for good and I was away, I had much time with me but not much money. Anything at a reduced price attracted my attention. If anything was available at reduced price in the market, would attract my attention. On the footpath in the front of Madras Mount Road Post Office, this is the name of the road. There, at the front of that, there was a pile of brand new books. Those were on sale there for 50 paisa each. Actually, they were copies of the same book, an elegant paperback of American origin. So they were the copies of the same. Those were sold there on the road. Special low price student edition that was written there. Special low price student edition in connection with the 50th anniversary of the Russian Revolution. In connection of the 50th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, they were sold there. I paid 50 paisa and picked up a copy of the book. The God That Failed. The name of the book was The God That Failed. Six eminent men of letters in six separate essays and described their journey into six eminent means famous, renowned men of letters in six separate essays described their journey into communism and their disillusioned return. In every chapter, six chapters were dedicated to six eminent people, and they have given their experience how they were lured to communism and they were disillusioned there and they were disappointed then and then they returned. One was Andre Guide. He was a French writer, humanist, moralist, received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1947. Then Richard Wright, an American writer known for his novel Native Son and his autobiography Black Boy. And there was a Genzio Silone. He was an Italian writer who was the founder, member of the Italian Communist Party in 1921, and is known for the book The God That Failed, authored by him. Then one more eminent writer, he was Arthur Koestler. Arthur Koestler was a Hungarian born British novelist known for his novel Darkness at Noon. Then there was Louis Fisher, Louis Fisher, a well known American journalist and a writer of Mahatma Gandhi's biography entitled The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. And the Oscar winning film Gandhi is based on this biographical account. And Stephen Spender, we already know about him. Stephen Spender, suddenly the book assumed tremendous significance. So this book assumed tremendous significance because 10 eminent writers have shown their experience of how they entered in communism, and then later on they were disappointed. Stephen the Spender, the poet who had visited Gemini Studios, we already know. In a moment, I felt a dark chamber of my mind lit up by hazy illumination. Means the dark chamber of my heart was illuminated. Just recalling that time when Stephen Spender had arrived there. The reaction to Stephen Spender at Gemini Studio was no longer a mystery. So it was no more mystery. At that time, it was who the poet was coming to our studio. The boss of the Gemini Studio may not have much to do with Spender's poetry, but not with his God that failed. But means he had nothing to do with his poetry, but not with his God that failed, means about the book that he had written. So with this, I conclude today's lecture.